In the restaurant, my husband Keith Beltran's good friend spoke to him in a foreign language. "Isn't Mildred you're keeping pregnant? I bet Cynthia doesn't know about it." Keith shook his head lightly, his expression unchanged. "Cynthia said she wouldn't accept betrayal. If she ever finds out, she'll vanish from my life forever, so I've kept it well hidden." What he didn't know was that not only had I learned foreign languages, but I was also planning to leave him. In just 1 month, I would disappear completely from his world. Keith chatted away with his friend in a fluent foreign language while carefully feeding fruit to me. He didn't notice my slightly swollen, red eyes. He thought I couldn't understand foreign languages, which was why he felt free to discuss his affairs right in front of me. What he didn't know was that, over the years, I had learned multiple languages and was fluent in 5 of them. Even his casual conversations with his mistress, Mildred Clayton, always in another language, were all within my understanding. He'd been deceiving me for so long, but I had kept one secret from him, too. 1 month from now, I would erase all my information and leave for another country with a completely new identity. By then, no matter what methods Keith used, he would never find me. I looked coldly at the man I had loved for 10 years. His face was the same, his features unchanged, but to me, he had become a stranger. Suddenly, everything felt so pointless. I didn't want to play along anymore. I made an excuse to go home and rest. Just as I stood up, Keith did the same, saying, "You all have fun. I'm leaving, need to take my wife home to rest." His friend sighed, clearly dissatisfied. "We've barely started, and now you're leaving? This is no fun." I let go of his hand, coolly replying, "Just have the driver take me home. Just stay and enjoy yourself." Without giving him a chance to respond, I turned and walked out. Outside the restaurant, the driver had been waiting for a while. As I got in, I realized that Keith's coat was still draped over my shoulders. I told the driver to turn around. When we got back to the restaurant, a familiar figure appeared before me. It was Mildred, the woman Keith had been keeping for the past 6 months. She was wearing a black, tight-fitting dress that highlighted her curves, her high heels clicking as she swayed her hips toward the restaurant. My breath caught in my throat, and my heart tightened in pain. She walked into the private room and immediately sat down on Keith's lap, wrapping her arms around his neck and speaking in a playful tone. "As soon as I got your call, I rushed over. I missed you so much." Then, she pressed her lips to Keith's, a brief, teasing kiss. Keith smirked, and his eyes were full of desire. He cupped the back of her head, pulling her closer as he kissed her with an intensity that seemed to want to consume her completely. Laughter erupted from the group. "That's W. Hi Keith, keeps a mistress. Mildred's the perfect type, innocent yet so tempting. Who could resist her?" I stood outside the door, coldly watching the scene before me, my heart slowly numbing. They all knew about this, and they played along with Keith to deceive me. Meanwhile, I had been desperately trying to fit into their world, hoping to bond with them. In the end, I was just a fool. In my panic, Mildred had already climbed off Keith's lap. She raised her glass, toasting the group with a drink, acting carefree as she downed it. A friend joked, "Keith, you sure know how to live. We're all jealous of you. I thought you'd stay faithful to Cynthia, but seems like even the innocent guy couldn't resist Mildred at all." When he heard my name, Keith's smile faded, replaced by a cold expression. His tone turned sharp, carrying an unspoken warning. "I hope this stays between us. If it reaches Cynthia, don't blame me for being ruthless." The atmosphere instantly dropped to freezing point. A friend slapped his chest and reassured him, "Keith, don't worry. We've got your back. Cynthia will never find out. Yeah, don't worry. As long as you're careful, she won't notice. Women are easy to deceive." Their chatter made Keith's furrowed brow relax a little. Trying to lighten the mood, Mildred suggested they play a game of truth or dare. The bottle spun, and whoever it pointed to had to tell the truth. After several rounds, it was finally Mildred's turn. With a mischievous grin, a friend asked, "When was the last time you?" Mildred playfully pouted and answered, "Yesterday, in Keith's office." As soon as those words left her mouth, the room erupted in laughter and praise for Mildred's boldness. Outside the door, I gripped the hem of my dress, my body trembling. Yesterday was our 5-year wedding anniversary. I had cooked all of Keith's favorite dishes myself. I heated the food again and again, only to get the message that he had to stay late for a meeting. To keep me from suspecting, he even arranged for his secretary to pretend to be with him. I remembered the day 5 years ago when he married me. He had raised my hand high, tears in his eyes, and loudly announced to the world, "I married Cynthia. She is my wife." That day, he laughed and cried as if he had finally achieved his long-awaited dream. But in just 5 years, the boy who had made me feel like I had won the world now made me feel like I had lost everything. I couldn't bear to watch anymore, so I turned and left. As I turned, I bumped into the waiter who was bringing the next dish. I signaled for him to stay quiet. I don't want anyone in there to know I was here. Afraid he might blurt something out and ruin my plan, I slipped a few bills into his hand, feeling relieved once he took them. I wiped away the tears from my eyes and composed myself before walking out. The driver noticed Keith's jacket still draped over me and looked puzzled. "Mrs. Beltran, haven't you seen Mr. B. Beltran? You can wait in the car. I will take it to him. You look a bit pale." I waved him off and tossed the jacket into the car. "He's too hot right now for that jacket. I'll take it back later. You can drive another car. I need to use this one." I started the engine and drove toward the university, where Keith and I had spent our wonderful college years. For a moment, I could almost see that young, ambitious man again, holding my face in his hands, making a promise for a lifetime. He had said, "I'll only love Cynthia in this life." He had said, "Cynthia, I can't live without you." Keith, the one who broke his promise, deserved to swallow 10,000 needles. So, I would punish him. After a month, he would never see me again. I sat alone on a bench by the lake for a long time until the night quietly settled in, and I snapped back to reality. Having been with Keith for 5 years, married for another 5, 10 years of love, it would be a lie to say I wasn't heartbroken. But now, I felt strangely indifferent, no longer stirred by any emotion. Time was the best medicine. I stood up, ready to head back, but was suddenly hit by an electric bike.